Sorry about the angle. This isn't about me though. This is just about what I got to say. So I just was about to go on a rant in my car, solo of course. I'm always riding solo, man. It's just part of this life, man. You know, you're gonna have seasons. Maybe you have a couple people around you, but I tell you, with more wisdom comes more sorrow, and also comes more loneliness, man. You know, you just resonate with people less. You know, it becomes harder and harder to fit in, harder and harder to find people who may be like-minded that you can share and you can talk with. You know, maybe you can find these people through online sources. You know, you'll be able to, communicate through online, but, in your actual physical day-to-day life, you're going to find yourself alone more often than not. But that's not what this video is about. This video is just about consumerism, man. And I'm just sitting here, I'm just like, man, I'm so tired of just consuming, Let me put this seatbelt on. I did have the seatbelt on, guys, but I stopped and I had to pick up something. So anyway, yeah, I had to pick up and consume. I had to pick up, stuff. Anyways, but yeah, I'm just so tired of consuming, man. And then, what triggered me to actually make this video is I'm driving down the road and I just look over and I see a woman just, stuffing her face, just mouth wide open, just shoving it down, and it's just like, man, you got to realize, we in this life, all we do is we sleep. And I'm not saying sleep as far as a physical rest, in your own bed, shutting your eyes, 6 to 8 hours a night. I'm not talking about that kind of sleep. I'm saying that a lot of the people are just spiritually asleep. And they're asleep as far as physically, in the sense of they don't know what's going on around them. They just go around their day-to-day life as a debt slave, and they just think that this is all this existence is about, and they don't ever tap in spiritually and start to connect dots on the world around them. They just simply obey their masters and parrot the information that their masters tell them through the tell-a-lie to your vision, the television. And, the lie just perpetuates on and on. So we sleep, they live. It goes back to the movie, They Live. Exactly, that's what they're telling you. These people live. What do? They live and they create. What do? We sleep and we consume. That's all we do. We sleep and consume, sleep and consume. And again, I'm not talking about physical sleep. I'm talking about spiritually sleep. We're spiritually dead to the world around us. That's why there's a church corner on every corner to keep you spiritually asleep. Even when, like me personally, I believe in the scriptures wholeheartedly. Am I a Christian? Absolutely not. But do I believe in the scriptures? Am I biblical? Do I think that the Messiah, Yahusha, is the way, the truth, and the life out of this, matrix mess that we have been, brought up in? I totally do, because I've seen the powers in my life as far as, the transformative powers, the renewing of my mind, the changes in the way that I think, the changes in the way that I talk. I've seen these powers move in my life, and, and there's just no way that, and I'm just the best version of myself that I've ever been, following after the Messiah, being led by the Spirit, reading the scriptures. These things have led me into a self-discovery, evolution into a much better man than I once was. Okay, so I'm scriptural, yes. So yeah, I believe the Mashiach is indeed who he says he is, and he is the way out. I've just seen too much to believe otherwise. But I don't even know why I started on that rant. I don't even know why I went down that path. But I think I was just trying to say, even if you aren't into that, and you are on your own walk, and but nonetheless, you see the spiritual deception and the things going on around us, and it makes you question, because there is people like that who just, maybe they're Gnostic, they just aren't sure what's going on here, and it's really a valid point to be agnostic. I'd rather see someone be agnostic than an atheist. I mean, to just deny and just think that everything just came into existence from, Charles Darwin and this evolution theory, and where we evolved and the Big Bang and all this nonsense, this spinning ball in the middle of nowhere, and galaxies on top of galaxies, just all the craziness that we've been sold that even goes against common sense. I mean, the flat earth theory has been around since the beginning of time. I mean, civilizations for thousands and thousands of years have known and have taught and have shared with others, and their belief system was all based around a flat earth cosmology of a world of an earth where it was immovable. It didn't move, and the things moved around us, and it was a flat plane, and so I'm just going off everywhere on this. I'm just going off everywhere. I guess I've just had a lot on my mind recently, as far as a lot of stuff going on. Just looking into more things, and it's been a season of evolution for me. Yeah, once again, I guess you just go through seasons. In my belief, I think the Most High takes you through seasons. You'll go through something, and then you'll touch up on a topic, and then you'll expound upon that for a couple weeks, couple months, and then there might be a down period, where you're just kind of perfecting your faith still, and just continuing to push forward, and walking out your walk, and then boom, something else comes. He reveals to you something else. He shows you something else, and maybe you go back and revisit something that you once thought you had a good grasp on, and you learn something else. So you're always going through evolutions in this life, and always figuring out new things, and evolving as a human. I think that's a big thing. And these Satanists, they think evolving as a human means exceeding human limitations, when that's not the case. They're all into transhumanism, and nah, man, because what you're trying to do, you're not trying to exceed human limitations. You're trying to not become human and not be human any longer. See, me, I want to be a human because I'm made in the image of the Most High Creator, Yahuwah. He created me as a human, just as well as all of you watching this. You are humans, unless maybe you're a reptilian in disguise, in a human body shell, aka the elites, joining the Black Eye Club. But I digress, okay? You're likely a human, and we're just trying to evolve as humans and become better, and we're trying to, we need to be working on developing ourselves spiritually, developing ourselves physically, as far as getting in better shape, pushing ourselves physically, practicing our discipline, practicing our spiritual discernment, becoming more mature mentally in the way that we handle things, becoming more loving, just following after the Mashiach, and just, representing his character in, every aspect of our lives, and our every second of every day, just trying to become better than what we were. You shouldn't look back a year from like, let's say a year ago or 2 years ago, and be like, oh, I'm the same person, or I like that version of myself better. Then you're kind of going backwards. It's always about moving forward in this life, and just continuing to just figure out things. But I tell you, the more you figure out in this life, the more you know you don't know. Okay, like, there's just so much to try to grasp and get your head around, and you're never going to be able to. But we trust in the Most High, and that's all that really matters. Knowledge at the end of the day is not going to save you, and knowledge can also become an idol in your life. So you got to watch that too. The Most High has always got to be the center of your focus upon everything. You can't start focusing on the deeds of the devil, and how these elites are carrying out those deeds, and the devil's will, their daddy's will. You can't be focused on all that too much, to where it takes your distraction and your commitment and your obedience away from your walk with the Most High. That always has to remain first and foremost, every day. But you just look around. I'm actually driving through Chillicothe, Ohio. I don't know if anyone is familiar with that. Just another, just another small town in Ohio, man. Actually, it's not super small. It used to actually be the capital of Ohio. But nonetheless, probably like, 50,000 people. But yeah, man, you just, what is there on every corner? I mean, even now I'm in a different spot. I believe I'm in Waverly now. Let's see if we can show you guys. So I'm driving down south to visit some family. Not for the New Year's, because we're actually in the 10th lunation, but just happened to be that time when I got some time off work. But look around, man. We got a Caesars, we got a Subway, we got a gas station, we got a Wendy's up there, and this is just what I see within, a half-a-mile radius. So that's all we do, man. As humans, we just consume. Us sheeple, or I guess us people, even if you're awake, I mean, I guess we're still a debt slave. You're still part of the system. Us involved in this system, all we do is we just consume, man, and it's kind of sick. It's kind of sick to think about it. They put all this stuff here, and all we do is consume it. We never create anything of our own, and it's because these wicked people have power, and they've already done it. They've taken control of the system both vertically and horizontally. They follow the Rockefeller blueprint. When he started the Cleveland massacre. When he took over all the oil rigs. And he took over every aspect of oil production. They copy that same type of blueprint in every aspect of society. That's why they own and they control it all. So it's like, how are you ever going to own or control anything in this life and, have some power in your life if, everything you do, must come through them. Everything you do must be bought through people who are ultimately owned by these people. So it's like, man, sometimes it can just feel a bit helpless. That's why you got to be attached spiritually, because there's a lot of guys, my dad is one I can truly think of right off my hand, who, you come into this type of knowledge and, you think you're ready for it. But I tell you, if you're not spiritually intact, you're not ready for it, man, because when you figure out the life around you is all a lie, and that it's all controlled and manipulated, and it's to suppress you and to keep you in your lower self, and it can ruin somebody, it can really hurt somebody. And that's why you got to be spiritually intact whenever you come about these things. And you got to have a true outlet, and you have to have something to put your faith in, because if everything around you is just so built and torn to the ground, where are you supposed to rest? And then that can lead someone, into start taking drugs, to finding just bad outlets that are unproductive and unhealthy, and just trying to escape in the wrong ways. So just find your own spirituality, I guess. I would always say, you need to be scriptural, but I realize, that's not for everyone, and I'm not here to force my beliefs upon anybody. I have other videos on my channel of where I've shared my experiences, but ultimately, it's for each and every one of you to make up your own decision about what you want to believe. But I think we can all come to agreement, that this world is definitely not what it seems, and the people who are in power are surely evil, and they are the ones who live, and they are the ones who create, while we are the ones who sleep, and we are the ones who simply consume. We work a job that they've put there for us to work, to go to a store, to go to a restaurant, to go to a gas station that they put there for us to consume and us to buy at. And it just keeps circling around, and it just keeps coming back to them. And then what do? They build more. They build more circus and bread for us people. So we stay distracted. So we don't ever question. So we just sit back and obey. So we don't have independent thought. So we don't actually, rationalize and think for our own. And we just trust what our slave masters tell us. And, the best slaves are the slaves who don't know they're slaves. So we got to wake up. 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 We got to unite. We got to come together, man. But at the end of the age, man, whether we see it or not. And I do believe that we will see the return of the Mashiach. At the rate in which things are going, they cannot continue on. I don't know how they possibly could, man. I really, really would like to see the kingdom come. And these people to, get, for us people out here, to get the justice in which we deserve, and that is for this system that has been enslavement system that has been set up around us to be conquered and thrown to the ground, and for the beast to be locked in chains, while us people who are last in this life are first in the next life, and we inherit the millennial reign and the kingdom upon this earth, and we reign with the Mashiach, and it makes all this heartache well worth it. I mean, what is going on right now? What's going on? It is the separation of the wheat and the tares. And I hope that you guys are going to be the wheat. You don't want to be the tares. You don't want to be plucked out and cast into the fire, man. This life is rough enough, man. I mean, you just want to, submit your eternal existence for this life here. Come on, this life is nothing, man. It ain't worth living at all. Come on, you're gonna throw away your eternal existence for this, man. Wake up, start becoming kingdom minded, start focusing on the eternal, man. Start following after the Spirit. Let's go. Let's inherit this kingdom, man. Let's let these Luciferians get the consequences to their action, the judgment they so righteously deserve. But just some words of encouragement, I reckon. But yeah, watch that, man. Watch that. Think of ways in your life that you can create, and ways in your life in which you can stop consuming. Obviously they've made it to where you got to consume some things. I guess you got to consume getting gas in your car. You got to consume as far as, maybe going to the grocery store, but don't try not to consume anything that's harmful to you. And that's easier said than done in this life. I mean, even the air is harmful to us. The electromagnetic frequencies that we're taking in on the daily, the chemical baths that we take in on the daily. I mean, so it's really hard not to consume anything that is bad for you, but just try not to, man. Try not to consume anything that's bad for your soul, that's bad for your mental state through the music that you listen to, that's bad for your health through the food that you eat, that's bad for your health through what you drink, that's bad for your health as far as, scrolling on that phone, taking in all that blue light, hurting your eyes, man, laying in those disgusting tanning beds that just fry you out and expose you to more radiation and more frequency and hurt your skin, age your skin, so focus on what you can consume. I guess we're always going to be consumers unless we go back to the Little House in the Prairie days, or we join the Amish, which would be pretty cool to join the Amish. I gotta say, I would probably really enjoy that life, man, leaving this consumerism behind and starting to create on your own. But if we can't, I don't want to say trapped, because I don't feel like you're ever trapped. If we are still a part of this world in which we are, just watch what you consume, okay? Don't consume drugs. Don't consume things that are harmful to you. Consume the necessities, I reckon, and try to remain pure and, just keep following after holiness and, seeking after the Most High in every deed. And, don't be eating that fast food, man. It's poison. It's poison. Try to get off the pharmakia. Try to get off the sorcery drugs that they sell at these pharmacies and these prescriptions that everyone's on. Try to get off of them, man. And I gotta say, that's one of my goals for in the next couple months, is to come off those. I'm only taking right now a blood pressure medication, and that's from my bodybuilding days when I was much heavier. So I'm still about 220 right now, so I want to get that down to about 190, and I think I'll have no problem coming off that. So that's one of my goals in the very short few coming months. But yeah, guys, just watch what you consume, man. It all has an impact on you, whether you think it or not. So that's my advice, man. But yeah, this talk, I guess, was supposed to be about consumerism, but it kind of went all over the place. But nonetheless, I felt like it was good stuff that, maybe someone needed to hear, quite possibly. So, Yah bless you all. And I don't know, I'll pick up the camera again when I get the urge to. That's simply how it goes with me. So catch ya whenever.